Hey y'all, it's Sarah. Today we're going to be doing another video in the calculus series. And so this one is going to be on transformations of functions. So here is the general formula, and I'm just going to walk you all through each part of this. So the first thing to understand is that everything that happens outside the parentheses, right? So this is all inside and then outside. So A and D, those are going to be affecting what happens in the y direction, okay? And then everything inside the parentheses is going to affect what happens in the x direction, along the x-axis. All right, so let's start with the stuff that's going in the y direction, and we're actually going to start at the end. So D here. D is going to be our vertical shift. Basically, if you think about it, all of this comes out to be some value for y, right? And then if we add d to it, we're just increasing that value, so shifting up on the y-axis. And so this is going to be our vertical shift. And then plus or minus a. So the first thing to address is the plus or minus part. So basically, if this is negative, we are going to reflect the whole function. We're going to reflect it about the x-axis. So negative a, we reflect it over x-axis, which means like a vertical reflection. Now, A is going to represent our our vertical stretch. Right, so if A is greater than 1, right, this is going to be a stretch. Now, if A is between 0 and 1, then that's going to be a compression, but that's the direction we'd expect it to be happening in, right? Like, if it's greater than 1, we're multiplying by, a constant that, makes this quantity bigger, whereas if it's less than 1 and greater than 0, we're talking about a fraction, and fractions would shrink the quantity. So everything happens in sort of the direction you'd expect it to happen when it comes to the things outside the parentheses, things that affect the y direction. Now, inside the parentheses, the things that happen in the x direction, everything's opposite, okay? The plus or minus b thing works the same way, in that for a negative b, we reflect this time over the y-axis, right? So it's a horizontal reflection. But B doesn't represent a horizontal stretch. It represents a horizontal shrink. So if A is greater than 1, we're actually going to basically stretch it by 1 over A, right? That's what we're multiplying by instead. And then, so we're basically taking the reciprocal, right? If B is between 0 and 1, then we are stretching, so multiplying by the reciprocal there too. And then for C, the reason that I went ahead and wrote a minus sign is because I like to think of it as an arrow to the right, okay? C represents our horizontal shift, but it's backwards, okay? We move to the right if it's a negative sign. If it's a positive sign, we move to the left. So again, I think of it as an arrow. So yeah, that's basically the layout of how these things work, and I'm going to show y'all a little example. So we have a graph of this function f of x, and then we have a definition of g of x in terms of f of x, and we want to graph g of x. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to start from the inside out, right? So the closest thing to x is going to be what's actually in the parentheses with it. So remember, this is an arrow to the right, so this is a shift to the right by 1. That's going to look like that. Yeah, okay. And then the next thing is going to be this term right here, right? That's the next closest thing to x. And so remember, from up here, that is going to be our horizontal shrink. So we're going to compress this horizontally. So we're going to get something that looks like that. And then the next thing is our A term, the red one. So the negative sign is the first thing we're going to deal with. That means that we flip this over the x-axis. So it's going to look like that. And then the 2, that is going to be our vertical stretch. So we're basically just making this longer and skinnier. And then the last thing is this +1 at the end there, right here. That is going to be our vertical shift. And so we shift this up by 1. And so there is our final graph. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.